Hi, I'm Eric Summerer, and here's what's coming from the Dice Tower this week.
Hey folks, welcome to the news for July 1st, 2013. We are halfway through the year at this point. Very exciting, but even more exciting is what's going on this week. The Dice Tower Convention in Orlando, Florida, with 625 guests, which has doubled in size from last year and hopefully will continue to grow as the years go by. Because of that, I had to record this news segment a couple days early, so if major news happened over the weekend, it's not in this video, and for that I apologize. Podcast might have been released too, and so on. But a couple things. First of all, if you missed it last week, we did our top 10 essential games every gamer should own, which is a bit of a provocative title, but really we're just trying to get people to think about games everyone should have, or most people should have. This week we're at Dice Tower Convention. We're going to record a couple more top 10 lists. They won't be posted this week, but the following week. One is top 10 elimination games, and then another is top 10 overrated games. Games everyone else seems to like, and we go, why? We'll also be recording the Dice Tower audio podcast. We'll be recording that live. We'll be doing one show where we talk about our top 10 Kickstarter games and, of course, taking maybe live questions from the audience. And then the other one, we're going to be opening these envelopes here. These envelopes are the Dice Tower Award winners. They have been selected by a committee of 40-some people. We have voted on them. We have Best Reprint, Best User Theme, Best Family Game, Best New Designer, Best Artwork, Most Innovative Game, Best Expansion, Best Party Game, Best War Game, Best Game from a Small Publisher, Best Production, and then the Best Game of 2012. I'm currently the only person who knows what's inside these envelopes, but we will be doing it live there, so you might hear about it through tweets and such. However, we will officially announce it when we publish the podcast, which will be not tomorrow, but the following Tuesday. Lots of exciting things coming this week. Let's get to the news. Gaming news. Z-Man Games has announced a new game from Uwe Rosenberg, who's well known for games like Agricola and Le Havre. You know, he has really made a big splash here. This one's called Glass Road. They've already put up some pictures of it. They're releasing it at Essen. I'm sure this has a lot of people who are fans of Rosenberg to be very excited about it, because he usually, whether you like his games completely or not, there's no denying that he puts out games of the highest quality. Corsac Engineering. I thought this was interesting. They've made some plastic templates for X-Wing miniatures, and I guess that would also work for the upcoming Star Trek Attack Wing, and a holder to hold them during the course of the game, which would be pretty convenient. The Supreme Court used Clue in one of their cases. I guess that doesn't really matter that much, but I thought it was interesting. And there's a Dungeon Twister card game coming, where you'll be able to build your own deck of team and play against someone else. I don't know a lot more details behind that, other than that it will be shown off at Gen Con, and I love Dungeon Twister from Christopher Bollinger and Asmodee Games, so very much looking forward to seeing what this new card game is like. Story of the week, I found this one very interesting. There is a world champion or Guinness Book of World Records thing happening at Gen Con from Mayfair Games, where they plan to have the largest game of Settlers of Catan ever. It's going to have 1,000 players. It's going to last for 62 turns. So they're going to have the officials from Guinness Book of World Records show up. Should be interesting. Everybody who plays will get a unique set of colored wooden pieces that's, I guess, currently not in the game. They'll get some other cards and map and thing. And one person will win a golden ticket, will be in their thing, in which they'll get the deluxe treasure chest Settlers of Catan and things. All this, to play, you have to pay $10, but still. That seems like a very interesting thing. I'll try to get some pictures of it while I'm there. Even though we're going to be gone this week, folks, I want to tell you the reviews are already recorded. They're already uploaded. They're ready to be posted. They'll be posted all this week. I believe that we have, let's see if I say this right, we have 15, 18, 20 reviews for you guys to watch this week, and we have some doozies, some big name reviews, a couple to wet your whistle. We're reviewing some of the classics like Memoir 44, the Game Boy Geek will be taking a look at that, but we're also going to be taking a look at Star Trek Attack Wing and the ships that come out for it. So that's exciting. Duel of Ages 2 and the Masters expansion, Werewolf Inquisition from BZA Games, and several other great games. So keep an eye out for those. They'll be all posted to this channel this week. In the Dice Tower Network, not a lot of podcasts came out this past week, but there's been a few. The D6 Generation released their Lost Chapters, which they had special guest Jeff Engelstein, and they talk about their recommended reading lists. Board Game University, which is a podcast you may not have heard about. It's a newer one that I run, in which I interview people for somewhere between 20 to 30 minutes. Very short, very focused interview about what it was like for them to be in the industry. How did they publish their game? How did they design their games? I'm not looking at this to be something that is what's coming out in the future, but how did they get to where they were in the past? This past week, we have an interview from Mark Kaufman from Days of Wonder Games, and he talks about how that company came into being. And this coming week, we have one coming from Stephen Glenn, the designer of games like Balloon Cup or You Must Be an Idiot. Also, Snakecast has Eric Lang, designer, on it, and they talk about those award winner stickers on boxes. What do they mean for the game? Rolling Dice and Taking Names is a 5-minute podcast where they talk about The Duke. And the Geek All-Stars latest podcast, they talk all about all sorts of Origins games, including Augustus, one of the Spiel des Jahres nominees. Once again, it's time to look at a shelf and see why I have kept the games. I'm doing this one shelf a week just to show you guys why I've kept the games in my collection, because even though I've reviewed and looked at over 3,000 games, I only keep 300 of them or so. Galaxy Trucker, I have the expansion and the big expansion here, and another big expansion. All three fit in 2 boxes. I wouldn't have minded getting the Galaxy Anniversary Edition, but it came out after I picked up all the expansions. That's how these things work. Super fun game. And of all these Lookout/Z-Man games, Agricola and Le Havre are both still 2 games that I like quite a bit. The other ones in the series, I like Ora and Labora. It's a fun game, but it just, didn't make the cut. These 2, I think, are absolutely fantastic. Amun-Re is a Knizia game I actually really enjoy. I love the bidding system in it, and I think it's a very solid, good. When people talk about good Euro games, this is one I think of. Cat and Fish, I kind of hang on to this one. It's a worker placement game. It's a good one. It's not absolutely stunning, but it's good, and I hang on to it because it's from Korea and it's so unique. Lifeboats is mean. Mean. Super mean game. I keep that one for when I have 6 players and we want to be mean to one another. Manhattan Project is an excellent worker placement game from Minion Games. Very much like the theme, like how everything fits together. Shadowhunters is what I call a convention game. In fact, at Dice Tower Convention this week, if I get a chance, I might play it, where there's different teams of people. This is a game that's replaced Bang for me, basically. I think it's an excellent who is who type game. Among the Stars is a newer addition to my collection, but one I enjoy a lot. It's a drafting game where you build a space station. Well, I like the space theme in the game, but I really enjoy drafting. And then the Anniversary Edition of Puerto Rico. I would have kept Puerto Rico anyway. I think it's a fine Euro game, one of the best Euro games ever designed. But the Anniversary Edition is just absolutely gorgeous. And so this is kind of like one of my Euro game shelves, mostly because that's the size boxes these come in. But when I look at these, when I look at this shelf, I think quality. Music's on today. I thought I would talk again. I want to go back to what we talked about last week. Last week, we talked about how you really shouldn't get upset when a publisher's game is out of stock, and just to wait patiently, it will come back into stock eventually. And there's nothing they can really do to hurry these things up. The games will come back. They will be there. Well, let's talk about another thing here, kind of very, very close to that, and that's games that are out of print. Many times I get people, they'll email me, many times, people email me and say, I want such and such a game, where is it? Well, folks, I don't know. I mean, you can email me, but I don't really keep track of where these games are. I go to Cool Stuff Inc. first because they host their show. They have a great selection of games. And then if they don't have it, then eBay and Board Game Geek. If those sites you can't find it there, well, then you're kind of out of luck. Games go out of print. Games go out of print for a lot of different reasons, but for the most part because the interest level isn't high enough to warrant keeping it in print and keeping those costs up. Now you say, but me and my friends all love this game and I hear so many people talking about it. Yes, that's true. But if the interest level was really that high and that many people did not have the game, then someone's bound to reprint it. This comes into what we call the Holy Grail games. The games that are out of print, that have been out of print for decades sometimes, and people say, why aren't these games in print? Everybody would love a copy of that. Well, 10 years ago, this was really the true case. There was a lot of great games out of print, but over the past almost 2 or 3 years, almost every single one of those games has been reprinted by somebody. You wanted to play Space Hulk, Games Workshop reprinted it. You wanted to play Fortress America, Merchants of Venus. Both of those were reprinted by Fantasy Flight. Stronghold Games brought Survive back and brought other games back. Valley Games brought some games back. A lot of these older classic games were brought back by all these different companies. I think Fantasy Flight has the lead in that one. You know, Cosmic Encounter was out of print. They brought it back. And so all these games that were out of print were back. But some games still aren't. Now, there's a few games that are out of print and you will likely not see back in print because of licensing issues or production issues. A good example of a licensing issue would be Star Wars Queen's Gambit. It's a great game, but it was based on Star Wars Episode 1 and it was full of lots of plastic and it was owned by Wizards of the Coast. So to be able to get all three of those things back in alignment to get this game back on the market for a group of people who, many people, you know, Star Wars Episode 1 is an old thing, you probably won't see that again. So that's out of print probably for good. Other games like HeroScape, a game I love very dearly, is out of print simply because plastic costs are that high. And they're directly related to the cost of petroleum. And so, you know, it's just too expensive to produce that game, which is unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And so there's a few other games that might not be in print because of legal wrangling. Two different people argue over who has the rights for them, and they're not in print. But after that, all these other older games that are not back in print, the demand isn't there. And you can sit there and you can groan and you can complain and you can say, oh, but look at how much they go for on eBay. Well, that's true, but just because a game goes for high price on eBay, it means several people really want that game, but it doesn't mean the masses do. Let's say, for example, I have a game called Muchafaluca. And Muchafaluca is this really popular game and we sell thousands of copies and then it slows down to a trickle and then it goes out of print. Then there's still about 100 people who want it. So Muchafaluca starts selling for hundreds of dollars on eBay because these 100 people are bidding against each other. And they will continue to do so for a while because the copies trickle into it. But that does not mean there are thousands of people who want the game. This is just economics. Okay, so that's why games go out of print. So what do you do as a consumer? Well, if you absolutely must have that game, then get it. There's one way to get what you want, money. You'll have to pay a lot of it maybe in some cases. You'll have to maybe wait patiently till that game becomes available. But there's very few out-of-print games that I haven't seen for sale at auctions, at conventions, or on eBay at some point in time. If you're willing to pay, you can get the games you want. But if you don't want to spend vast amounts of money, and that's what I recommend, then don't worry about it. Don't worry about the fact that you can't play such and such a game. There are many older games that I have not had a chance to play because they haven't crossed my path, and if I want them to cross my path at this point, they're too expensive. Who cares? If they're really that great and they're fantastic, eventually they will be reprinted and I'll play them then. But if they aren't, there are thousands, tens of thousands of great games to play. You will be able to play so many other great games and never give those other ones a thought. That's just mind-boggling. When people say, oh, I love this game, it's out of print, I wish I get it. Well, that's fine, but then look for a game that is in print. Look at Cool Stuff Inc. Look at their website right now. There's hundreds and hundreds of great games that you can buy. You can go to eBay and Board Game Geek and pick up lots of games that are just out of print a little bit and for very reasonable prices. It's not hard to get good games right now. So rather than pine after these older games, which sometimes aren't as good as people say they were, there's a good chance that nostalgia brings up the ratings of them. Forget those and just play the games that are out there now because there's just so much fun to be had with those. when I pick which games I keep, sometimes I keep a game for nostalgic sake because it might be worth a lot, or I like it a lot and very few other people have it. But mostly the reason I pick the games that I'm going to keep is because those games are super fun. And games come out every month, every week. Super fun games are coming out. So you may not be able to get this older game, but a new game just came out that's very similar to it and is just as fun, many times more fun, because these designers are able to work on and build off things in the past. So yeah, this doesn't satisfy some of those of you out there who are looking for that Holy Grail game to get. But like I said, really, we shouldn't complain. We live in the golden age of board gaming. There's so many games out there to play. Let's just have fun with the ones we have available to us. Well, that's it for this week. I hope to have some videos for you next week from Dice Tower Con and some podcasts, but I'm just going to go have some fun. I hope to see several of you there. I mean, I like talking about gaming, but what we say in the Dice Tower podcast is that the Dice Tower podcast is about games and the people who play them, and we love to meet the people who play them and enjoy that. So this should be a fun week. Don't forget, you can get an audio-only version of this at dicetoweraudio.com. If some of you are wondering what's been happening with the Dice Tower news now that Remy Gibson has stepped down, that will come back in a somewhat different fashion. We're still working on that now. We're also working on another podcast behind the scenes. So there's lots of exciting things to look forward to in the future. Either way, have a great day. Half of 2013 is gone. Half of 2013 is still to come. So many games we're going to be talking about in the future, but they don't mean anything unless you actually play them. Go play some.
To find out more about all of our podcasts, check out dicetowernetwork.com. To see a listing of our videos, head to dicetower.com. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cool Stuff Incorporated, where you can buy games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.
Shut the door.